Let's go. Good. Oh, all right. We are now learning Likuti Torah. We're learning Likuti Torah and an amazing speech which was given by the first Rebbe of Chabad, which is now in essay form in this book, Likuti Torah. And it talks about exactly what was the argument between Korach and Moshe and Aaron. The Korach went against Moshe and against Aaron. He thought that he should be the high priest, and he thought that he should be the leader. And he convinced everybody. So another question is, what was his motivation? How did he really think it would work? I mean, Moses did everything for the Jewish people, and Korach did nothing. So why did he ever think it would work? And not only that, it did work. It ended up that all the Jewish people were against Moses. He convinced everybody to go against Moshe. So what was the point? So the Rebbe says, it was a very deep thing. It was very, very deep. It came from the essence of human personality, the essence of human nature. What's the essence of a human being? You know, the Rebbe doesn't say this, but let's talk about it. What is the essence of a human being? The essence of a human being really is responsibility. Responsibility. A person comes into the world and he's wondering, why am I here? What am I doing here? Why am I here? So there's two basic answers you can have. Is that you're just here. It's just a natural process. It's just, a chemical, whatever it is, oxidation or something like that. And it's a process. You put seeds in the ground, they grow up, animals have babies, and your parents happen to be a certain type of living substance, not a little more developed than a tree and a little more developed than an animal, but that's it. You're just here. So there's no reason behind it. There's no meaning to the thing. It's just this whole sort of natural process, which that's valid. That's a valid way of looking at the world. Valid way of looking at the world. And in fact, to a certain degree, that's how we all look at the world. We're just here. When you have problems, you meet the problems, and if you don't have problems, that's good. You just like the famous statements by Sigmund Freud that he based his whole thing on the essence of man is to seek pleasure and avoid pain. That's the essence of man. Okay, but it's really not so, as Professor Viktor Frankl pointed out very clearly, and he pointed out in a scientific way, not in a religious way, that man needs responsibility. He wants responsibility. He knows that there is responsibility. Every human being knows that he's here for some reason. For some reason. What that reason is remains a big question mark. And to fill that question mark, there's all sorts of religions and things like that. But the Rebbe is telling us it's not so. No. That we're here in the world to somehow or other perfect the world, to make the world perfect. And that was the big argument between Korach and Moses. Right? How are you supposed to make the world perfect? What's the job? Now, Korach knew very well, as Moses knew, that the Jews are supposed to educate the world to this purpose. The Jews are the only ones that really are, deeply, existentially, what do you want to call it, enlivened and are created only for this purpose, namely to improve the world, to perfect the world. But there's two different ways to do it. How are you going to perfect the world? Now, that's what he's talking about here. That's what he's talking about. What is the essence of everyone's connection to God? Your connection to God is essentially what you do in the world. Forget about rewards, punishments, going to heaven. That's all, internal stuff. It's not important to us. What's important to us is, but just like a human being, you really care about what your intestines are doing, how many corpuscles you have in your eye or whatever it is. We don't care about those things. What you care about is, they're important. They're certainly important. But what's important is what you do in this world, your attitude toward the world. So that's what we're going to talk about here. Let's get into it. But now we can understand what is the argument between Korach and his claim. Remember what we said? Korach dressed 250 members of the Sanhedrin, he said, of the big judges, and he put talit, garments on them that were all blue. And he said, a garment that's all blue, does it still have to have blue string on it? And Moses said, of course. And everybody laughed at him, at Moses. If the talit is all blue, Then what do you have to have blue for? What type of thing is that? Well, how is that convincing? What is the blue of the talit? So the Rebbe says, the blue of the talit, shalom, good morning. The blue of the talit represents our ability to get rid of the bad in the world, to get rid of the bad impulses that are in the world. Huh? That's what the blue is. The job of the Jews is to fix up the world. How do you fix up the world? By getting rid of the bad. The world is essentially good. The world is very good. That's what it says in the Torah. It's very good. And all we have to do is just get rid of the bad. You get rid of the bad things, all the bad egotism and the bad selfishness that's in the world, and what's left is pure good. It's pure godliness. Then everyone in the world will really feel their responsibility to the Creator and make the world a better place, like Adam did. Adam was in the world, right? There was no bad in the world. There was just the option to do bad. And unfortunately, Adam, for whatever reasons it is, he took that option. But in fact, the world was totally good. And so it'll be now. Hopefully we learn from Adam. We won't do it. But what's the job? Says is getting rid of the bad. So that's the idea of blue. It says the idea of blue is, in Hebrew, the word for blue is techelet. Techelet means tachlet. Tachlet, to destroy. So that's what Korach, here we go, ready? So Korach said, what's that? Let me get my pointer over here. There's the pointer, okay. Korach said, Korach said, talit shektulat tchelet. If a talit, the garment, is all blue, is all like the rabbis say, in that Korach was jealous about the beard of Aaron. Huh? Why was he jealous? It says that when the Kohanim, when they were inaugurated, or after the sin of whatever, so they had to remove all the hair of their body, including their beard. It was a one-time thing. They had to remove it. But nevertheless, they did have to remove it. They had to remove it. So it says the Levite, did I say the Kohanim? I'm sorry, the Levites. The Levites had to remove all the hair on their body. We'll see. And Aaron, the Kohanim weren't in this category. It says, the whole thing is one topic. The Kohen Gadol, the beard of Aaron, the high priest, is called Shushvina de Matronisa. He's the escort of the queen. The high priest is called the escort of the queen. What does it mean, the escort of the queen? Shua Maleh, he escort the Jewish people, they're the queen. And in a wedding, so the queen has to be escorted to the groom, right? The bride is escorted to the groom. So the same thing, the Jewish people were the bride, and we have to be escorted to God. So that's the job of Aaron, is to escort the Jews, to elevate them to their source, to God, the Ein Sof. So the job of Aaron is to inspire the Jews to elevate themselves. How does he do it? How does he do it? Not by getting rid of the bad, not by just getting rid of the bad. That's what Korach wanted. Korach wanted to get rid of the bad. That was enough. No, Aaron did it by means of lahamshich lehem ahava, to draw down to them big love. That's the ending of the beard of the high priest. Like it says, like the beard, like the good oil was in Psalm 133 or something. Like the good oil that flows down the beard of Aaron. What is that, right? 133. Let's have a look over here. Excuse me, the book was right in front of me. Just 1 minute. Okay, let's see. It's one of the Shir Amos, right near the end. To draw down by them love. That's the whole idea of the beard of Aaron. The beard of Aaron, it says that the beard goes down on his midotov. The oil goes down the beard. That's what it says in here it is. I'm sorry. Give me 1 minute. Excuse me. Oh, terrible. Here it is. Yeah, that's right. 133. Like a shemen atov, like the good oil. You see where it is over here? Kashemen atov, like the good oil, al harosh, on the beard. Yored al zakan, comes down to on the head, comes down to the beard of Aaron, and it comes down al pin mirotov, to his garments. Now, the word for garments is midotov. The word for emotions is also midotov. So they says, that is drawn down by means of Aaron, midotov, the emotions of God. Shu'ava Rabba, which is big love. Rav Chesed. This is something like the Lubavitcher Rebbe. In Chabad in general, Chabad is called Lubavitch, and that's Luba means love. The Hasidic movement in general was supposed to bring love into the world. Was supposed to demonstrate God's love in the world. Right? You see all these wackos that talk of, the Hamas is right, the Zionists, we have to destroy them all. This is not Judaism, is not anything. This is the way of Korach. I mean, to learn merit on them, it's the way of Korach. And what's the way of Korach? You get rid of the bad, and then there's going to be good. It says the Baal Shem Tov, it doesn't work that way. You have to show not how strict God is and how exact God is. It's very true. God is very strict, is very exact. But you have to show how loving God is, how much love God has. Why is God so strict? Why is God so strict? Because He's so good. God is so good. He doesn't want people to do the wrong thing. So how are you supposed to make people go back and do the right thing? By showing them how good God is. That's the real motivation for God's strictness. Is goodness. It says Korach said, no way, I don't like this. We've got to be strict. We're going to make a complete division. There's going to be whoever is bad is out, whoever is good is in. Right? That's Korach's thing. Who is the one that are in? Anyone who agrees with me, they're in. You don't agree with me, you're out. And everybody said, oh, I agree with you. And that's that way of is Rav Chesed. That's the way of Aaron. Now, the way of Aaron is a little bit more difficult. And because it means you have to go looking for something good in everybody, and you have to do good to people, but it has to be in a way that doesn't harm them. You have to do good that's good, that benefits the other person. So that's very difficult. On the other hand, to hate everybody that's different from you is very easy. It's very easy. You just, look in the mirror, see who you are. Anyone that doesn't look like you, life is very simple. So it says, therefore, Nimshach, therefore, the love of God, to show how loving God is, this is drawn down by the means of the beard of Aaron. Why the beard? Why can't Aaron just give kisses? Just kisses and hugs. It says, no, it has to be the beard. Why? Because this love of God is so infinite, and it's totally above the whole entire creation. It was to overlook the bad of people and to try to find the good in them, or at least to believe there is good in them, is this takes a tremendously high level of godliness. And this is like from the level of forgiveness. It's impossible to be drawn down except by means of hairs. So it has to be drawn down by means of very, very, how do you say, the small amounts. Al derech masha, like it says masha, and al derech like hairs, which is not the case. Love, which is born from intellect, right? If you're looking for a reason to love everyone, it says that is who's that's already a bit logical. Then it's not such big love, but it'll be relevant to everybody. What's going on? 1 second, 1 minute. It didn't go before also for some reason. Suddenly, maybe it's the, this is terrible. 1 minute. I'm trying to move this thing. Oh, there we go. Good. Okay. And this is like I explained before. This is the idea of the beard of Aaron, that it comes down on his garments. What does it mean? The garments from above. The garments are the emotions of God that come down. So they're demonstrating how good God is. That's the idea of Aaron. The problem is this good of God, it can't be taken at once. It has to be taken in very small amounts, like it was on Mount Sinai. It has to be, there was too much. That's the idea of the strands of the tzitzit. That's the idea of the strands of the tzitzit. The strands of the tzitzit, some of them majority are white, and one of them is blue. Not like Korach said he wanted the whole thing to be blue. That's blue. That's called Dechila Berachima Ilah. That's what's called the upper fear and upper love of God. It says that the two tzitzits were in front of you, right? Shalafanav. This is love and fear, which is drawn down in a direct way. This is understanding, and it's and this is drawn down from above, wisdom, chachma, and bina. In other words, there's two tzitzits, the ones in front of you and the ones behind, but they represent God's love and God's fear, but drawn down in a way that we can accept it. That we can accept it. Okay, so let's just get this thing down a little bit clearly. It says in the Ten Commandments that I am God that took you out of Egypt. You can't have any other gods. So the world can only worship the God that took the Jews out of Egypt. Okay, why did God take the Jews out of Egypt? You can say, well, God punished the Egyptians. The Egyptians were bad guys, and he took them out. Was it because he didn't like the Egyptians or because he did like the Jews? What was the reason, the main reason? So we can say that it was really both. It was really both, right? On the other hand, we can say that, listen, God took the Jews out of Egypt, but it was a very gradual process. There were all these plagues, and he made the 10 plagues just for the Egyptians, and he gave the Egyptians over and over chances to let the Jews go. In other words, you can participate with my love, says God. I have love for the Jews. You can, and then it ended up that there were some Egyptians that did that was called the mixed multitude. They wanted to partake of this love that God had. But connected to this love is also very strict. It has to be very strict, right? Both of these love and fear that God shows and that he gives down to the world, it can't be too much. It can't be too much. If it's too much, then nobody accepts it, not even the Jews, which we see. That's what happened. The Jews at Mount Sinai, they got all these blessings and God took them out of Egypt and everything, and it was too much for them, right? As soon as there was the smallest the confusion, then they worshiped the golden calf, right? It didn't go inside of them. It didn't go inside. That's the whole idea of this awareness of God has to be inside of us. We have to make the decisions on our own. We have to feel it ourselves, right? And just like you were taught somehow or other that money is valuable, look around and you see people, money buys things. So it's inside of you. You know that money is worth something. You know it's worth something. And there's some people that can decide, right? To decide, listen, money is very valuable, but I'm not going to be bribed. I have my principles. So the principles, that becomes inside of you. It's yours. It's inside. That's the idea what Judaism is supposed to be. That everyone feels that what God wants, the principles of God, those are the ones that are inside of me. That's what I really value in the world. That's the story of Judaism. That's why Jews suffered and things like this, because they nevertheless held on to their Judaism because it was inside. It's something inside of them. It's my personal choice. And if it's going to be personal, it has to be, how do you say, the custom made. Oh, so the love and the fear of God has to be custom made. That's the strings of the tzitzit. That's the idea of the Kohanim, to bring this love down into the world in a way that's appreciated. That's Aaron. It's harder, but on the other hand, it's lasting. That's the way of Aaron. That's the thing of the beard of Aaron. Love that comes down in a way, and also awe, fear of God, but it comes down in a way that can be internalized by people. But the Levites, they said, no, by the Levites, it says that when they were inaugurated, it says, V'haviru tar, that they had to take a razor to all their hair on the body, including the beard. Because the Levites, the Kohanim came from the Levites, right? They came from the Levites. In the beginning, there was just a tribe of Levi. There's no tribe of Kohen, the tribe of Levites. But when, and the Kohanim, the priests, they were supposed to be the firstborn. But when the firstborn sinned, so with the golden calf, so God took it away from them. And he said, okay, now it's going to be only from the Levites. They're going to serve me, but more exactly the Kohanim. And that's the whole thing of Korach also. Everyone that came after Everyone that was born after, we'll see, everyone that was born after this decision that God made with, they were called Kohanim. And everyone that was before was not a Kohen. And Korach was born before. So it says, because the, no, I'm sorry, the other way around. Anyone that was born afterwards, he became a Kohen. And anyone who was born before the God abandoned the firstborn, they weren't Kohanim. Only the people that came from Aaron were Kohanim. Aaron and his relatives. And Korach was born before Aaron. So therefore, Korach remained Levites. They remained Levites. And Aaron and his relatives, his offspring, they became Kohanim. So it says the Levites, they were on the side of severity. And Aaron, he was on the way of love and kindness. And that's why Korach was jealous. That's why Korach was jealous. If you remember, that's how we started it off. It says Korach said, I'm the son of Yitzhar. Yitzhar means oil. I come directly from oil. And Aaron, he's just anointed with oil. He's not hasn't got this oil internally like I do. So therefore he said, I agree that the way of the Levites is the way things should be. Pure power. But that's the only way it should be. I don't want there to be any kindness in the world from God. Okay, because the Levites, they came from the left-hand side, the power of severity. Therefore, they said no. They didn't want any kindness in the world. Therefore, there was no necessity for having hairs. There was any hairs. Didn't have to come down. There was nothing internal. Right? Nothing internal. There's God's laws. You do the laws, and that's it. You don't have to have this emotions with love and with fear and with all this stuff. So it says, that's why Korach was jealous with Aaron. Because Aaron was the escort of the queen. The thing of Aaron was to elevate the Jews, elevate them, inspire them. And Korach's thing was, forget about this inspiration stuff and this is Judaism is cut and cold. You do what you're told and that's it. Why did he think that way? Because that was his nature. That was his nature, and he was satisfied with that nature. And everyone agreed with him. From the level of the beard of Aaron and the hairs of the Kohanim is drawn down a higher type of holiness. That's of Aaron. The Kohen, the priests, that was drawn down love and fear to the Jewish people. When Levim was exactly the opposite. It says there was no hairs. She'ein mehem hamshachah, there was no drawing down of love or fear or inspiration or appreciation of God. You just know that God is there and you do what he says. That's it. Because they didn't have this, therefore, because Korach himself did not have this aspect of love or whatever, so therefore he was against Aaron. He didn't like it. That's the way it used to be, by the way, with Chabad. A lot of the groups, they didn't like Chabad. They did not like Chabad. And one of them was because of the attitude of Chabad to non-religious Jews or anti-religious Jews, right? Anti-religious Jews. These other groups said, listen, we got Judaism, we have the Torah, and we have this exclusive club, which is called the Jews, and we're the servants of God, and you want to come in, you just have to abide by the rules. That's all. And Chabad said, no, it's not that. It's true. That certainly is true. I mean, you certainly have to abide by the rules. But on the other hand, it's the exclusive club is much bigger than you think. Right? In order to be a member of this club, all you have to do is be Jewish. You can't participate. You can't be an active member. You want to be an active member, you have to do the commandments. But nevertheless, every Jew, even if he doesn't know he's a Jew, is part of the club. How do you encourage a Jew to be an active member? Love. Love. You have to tell every Jew, listen, you're a Jew, you're a son of God. Every single Jew is precious to God. Every human being is precious to God. But they're precious, the rest of the world is precious to God because they're God's creations. but you are the sons of God. You're the priests, the Jewish people. Right? And it doesn't make, even if they reject it, but it doesn't make any difference. You have to somehow or other figure some way to get into their personality and convince them that you're a Jew, God exists, the Torah is true, right? Do one commandment, it'll whet your appetite. You'll do more, something, right, to encourage Jews to be more Jewish. Like it was when we won the 6-Day War. So before the 6-Day War, the Rebbe started encouraging his Hasidim to go out and put tefillin on non-religious Jews, especially in Israel, to go out and put tefillin on. It was an unheard of thing. It was an unheard of thing. You went in the street and asked a non-religious person to do a commandment in public, to do a religious ritual. But that's nuts. It's crazy. And a lot of people screamed at us and they yelled at us, right? And in the end, it ended up that what happened? Two things. Number one, those people who did put on tefillin, it had a spiritual effect. The Rebbe said that that'll protect the soldiers and win the battle, number one. And number two, when we did win, so people knew that you could express your thanks by putting on tefillin. And people that were not religious came down to the kotel and they were putting on tefillin. And the Rebbe of Gur, he sent his pupils down there to put tefillin on people. There were so many that wanted to do a commandment, love. That's the idea, love. You show people love and awakens them up. Wakens them up. On the other hand, if you don't show them love and they don't wake up, so you could say, so what? Big deal. What do I care? No, let them die in the darkness. It's not my problem. They don't do the commandments. They prepared the children, let them eat it. And the Rebbe said, no, that's not the way we look at Judaism. So therefore, there has to be this love. And Korach said, no way. The Torah is a bunch of laws. God is very strict. And what you're going to put tefillin on something? I even know people that said there's a law that says that if a person never put on, a Jew that never put on tefillin in his life, then it's a whole level, it's a whole like category of a Jew that never put on tefillin in his life. It says that person is very apt to go to hell. It says, but if a Jew put one time tefillin in his life, one time tefillin in his life, then it's very difficult, improbable that person is going to go to hell. One time in his life. So I know people, I used to live in Bnei Brak, they were angry at me. These people, these non-religious people, they deserve to go to hell. And you put tefillin on one time and you're taking away their punishment. They're going to go to heaven I learn Torah and I do commandments all the time and I'm in heaven, right? And this guy doesn't have to do any of the work. He just did one time because of you, and he's going to go to heaven. They were angry, right? They were angry. Doesn't make sense. I'm working so hard. I want this big reward. And you're just giving it to him for free. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, listen, my friend, the fact of the matter is we're not in this business for profit. Judaism is not a business, a business enterprise that we're in it to get as much, spiritual profits as we can. And this world is just, little profits, money and stuff like that. That's very, here today, gone tomorrow. And heaven is eternal bliss that you get, right? That's not why we're here. That's not why we're here. All those things are true. But that's not the reason that we're here, right? We're here in order to fix up the world. The more people that are working at fixing up the world, the better. The Jews are the only ones that can do it. Wake up a Jew. The more Jews that are awakened, even if they put on one tefillin on their wife, okay, so they don't go to heaven, they don't go to hell. You're right, that makes you feel bad. But it makes me feel good that, first of all, they don't go to hell. And second of all, that the Jew can become a Jew. He can start feeling his responsibility and fixing up the world. That's why Korach didn't like it. By the way, the word Korach also means to make a division. Korach mikano mikan, it says to make a division. Korach also is from the word of kerach, to be cold, to separate. I told you that story a few days ago about the Baal Shem Tov taking his pupils by the river and seeing the river froze over and the priests, whatever came out, the monks, whatever came out on the ice. Korach said, you don't have to have this love, you don't have to have this internal and personal relationships. And that's what Korach said. The hairs and these chutim, the strands, they draw down in a very, very limited way. Therefore, he asked the question, a talit that's all blue, What does it mean that it's all blue? He knew that he said that the main thing is God's severity. Because techelet, the word techelet, is also the power of God. Achal v'shetzi says he destroys and he wrecks. And he said the main thing is the talit, it's all techelet. He says the main thing of Judaism is the strictness, the laws, the power. Huh? The surrounding level which of godliness, which that blinds the eyes of the external forces. That shouldn't have to need any strands, little strands coming out of it. The strands are just little hairs and little strings that draw down these lights of God into an internal way, into a way that can be appreciated by people. God's love. And Korach said, forget that. You don't have to have that. Ki hari makif atzmo. It says the surrounding level of pure godliness, this is higher than all these little strings and all these. How could it possibly be that the talid itself will not be a mitzvah on its own, but only when you draw these little strings on it? Okay, now Korach knew that the commandment of tzitzit, you have to have strings. But what is intention? That in this you would divide also on Moses and also on Aaron. If you don't need the strings of the tzitzis, also you don't have to have Aaron as the Kohen. You don't have to have Aaron's beard and Aaron's blessings and things like that. You don't need all that stuff. Even though that the Levites, they can't draw down this holiness into these hairs, like we said before. But what did Korach say? Talit, a garment, which is all blue, you don't have to have the strings. Why don't you have the strings? Because it gets rid of the bad. We eliminate the bad, automatically the good will take over. Okay, there's explanations. 1 second. Yes. It says, look in the book called Magid Meshorim. You know what that book is? Magid Meshorim. Magid Meshorim is an angel. It's an angel that used to speak to Rabbi Yosef Cairo. Rabbi Yosef Cairo lived at the same time as the Arizal. I think his daughter married the Arizal's son, or the son, whatever. They knew there was a marriage. There was Rabbi Yosef Cairo. He was the holy of holies, Rabbi Yosef Cairo. But his main thing was that he wrote the Shulchan Aruch. But there was an angel that used to speak to him. And he wrote everything down that this angel said to him. And that's the book called Magid Meshorim. You can buy the book. It says also the same thing. That's what he says also. That's what it says over there, the angel said. So he said, maybe we can look at it a little bit deeply. It says that in the future, when there won't be any bad in the world, it says the Levites, they will be Kohanim. Like it says in Likuti Torah from the Arizal. Then all of the severities of the world will be elevated to just pure love. Like it says, Yitzchak Ata Avinu. What does it mean? Okay, this is a little bit complicated. Yitzchak is the aspect of Gevura, of severity, and it'll be elevated, that'll be the main thing. That'll be the main thing. All the severities will be elevated to demonstrate God's love in the world. Okay, so it says, that, therefore, the argument of Korach was really for the sake of heaven. What does it mean? That's like the argument between Shammai and Hillel. It says in Pirkei Avos that if an argument was just for egotism, it's not going to stand. But an argument that's for the sake of heaven will always be there. It's a holy argument, and it's good. What's the argument between Shammai and Hillel? Shammai and Hillel, their arguments, Shammai was usually wrong. The law, I'll take it back. The law was usually not like Shammai, not that he was wrong. The law was not like Shammai. So Shammai was too strict. Shammai, the house of Shammai, the school of Shammai, he was too strict. So the law is not like him. But it says that how can you say that? What do you mean it's going to be, their argument will be eternal? What do you mean it'll be eternal? Only one opinion is the one that's taken. Roy, how can you possibly say that it's an argument that's going to be an eternal argument, right? Only one of the opinions is going to be the right one, the one that we use. We can't do both. When it says that the argument will be eternal, this seems to imply that both opinions are somehow or other correct. And it's the answer it's given. Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim. All of the opinions in the Talmud are the words of God. You can't understand how both can be the words of God and only one opinion is accepted. It says because that's the words of God. God is not understandable. God is not understandable. But the fact of the matter is, yesh divrei, there are in the words of Beit Shammai, there is, next page, 1 minute. Let's make this a little bit bigger. For some reason, it's not working like it used to. 1 second. All right, I have to go down here. 1 second. Because the opinion of Beit Shammai also has a high, very high source. It's just the law is not like that. It says in Midrash Shmuel, but it says that in the future that the law will be like Beit Shammai. Well, anyway, so it says, but the Arizal says over there that in the time of the Mashiach that the law is going to be like Beit Shammai. Like it also says in the Mikdash Melech. Mikdash Melech is another Kabbalistic book. And the Mikdash Melech is a commentary on the Zohar. But this is, that's what it means that in the end, the argument between Shammai and Hillel is really going to be permanent, because we'll see that the opinion of Shammai was really correct, also was correct, but it just couldn't be accepted in the world. Okay, but nevertheless, Korach wanted to make now like Beit Shammai. So it says in the future the law is going to be like Beit Shammai, and not like Hillel. Shammai was very strict, and Hillel was very lenient, usually. So it says being strict is very good. Being strict is very good. Why? Because that's exactly the way things are supposed to be. Exactly the way things are supposed to be. You go and you buy a car, that the car is a used car, right? It costs you $200, whatever, $100. So it doesn't have to be so exact, but it's cheap. It's available for everybody. Everybody can buy it. You want to go and buy a Rolls Royce, and the Rolls Royce costs, I don't know, $1 million. Let's just say, I don't know how much it costs. It has to work perfect. It has to be, everything has to be perfect. It can't have any scratches on it. It has to be mounted. Except that's a car. That's a good car. It's just not available for everybody. It's the same thing with the Torah. You want the Torah to be available to everybody, so we go according to Beit Hillel. Don't think it means that you can be a reform rabbi and just say you don't have to keep Shabbat. It has to be the Torah. But nevertheless, there's more lenient opinions. That's Beit Hillel. But in the future, it says the law is going to be like Beit Shammai. Everything's going to be exact. Everything will be very, 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 very strict and very exact. That's the way it's supposed to be. Right? The Torah will be like a Rolls Royce. Everything will be perfect, exact, right? Don't scratch it. Don't make this. You have a car that's worth $200. A scratch, who cares? A dent. No, what difference does it make? Right? Makes no difference. But on the other hand, same thing with Judaism. You go according to Hillel. Okay, so you deviate a little bit here. You missed a little something over there. Okay, we'll be lenient. We'll give you more time. We'll give like it says, like Beit Shammai says, when you say Shema Yisrael, that in the nighttime you have to lay down, and in the daytime you have to stand up. And Beit Hillel says you can do it however you want to. That's not so exact. Why they're more lenient opinion. It says, but in the future the law is going to be like Beit Shammai, and that's the whole thing. Therefore, Korach, he wanted to make now that the main thing will be the Gevurot. Everything will be very strict. And that's the idea of a talit, which is totally blue. And you don't have to have any strings. That's drawing down from this level of God's kindness. The strings draw down from God's kindness. Says Beit Shammai, forget about the kindness. We're going to be exact here. Right? The world is going to be perfect. It says also the strands of the it says even though that the strands of Techelet, the blue strand, This is also in a way of kindness. Why? Because God is limiting the severity so that we'll be able to appreciate it, because that's the idea of the chut. This is drawing down in a way that we can appreciate. That's also kindness. So in other words, Korach wanted the world to be perfect. And perfect means there's no room for mistakes. Therefore, Korach said, anyone who's outside of being perfect, he's got no place by me. And everybody that was like Korach agreed with him. And eventually all the Jewish people, they all agreed with him. They said, yeah, we're all Jews and we all Torah mitzvahs, we're with you. But the fact of the matter is, even though that Korach saw that this is the way it's going to be in the future, but it's impossible to be only after the world is refined. And the world has to be refined by everyone making their own decisions. They can't be forced into a stall of Torah and commandments. You have to exactly, in the future, everybody's going to want to be exact, but it has to be from your own desire. Therefore, you have to have, the world has to be refined, namely that the Yetzer Hara, that our own selfish impulses will be transformed to good. And that can only be done if we do it on our own free decision. That began last week when God said to Moses, Shalach Lacha, you do the shots, you make the decisions. God said, I'm going to start refining free will. Free will is going to be used the way I want. And Korach said, I'm telling you what to do. You want to make mistakes, you're out. That's what Korach said, which is not the case now. It says, Hayom La'asotam, you have to do the commandments and you have to work on yourself. There is egotism. That's the whole idea of the Yetzer Hara, the evil impulse. And Korach wanted to get rid of it at once, said, you can't do it. You can't do it now. That's what God tried at Mount Sinai. Knock them down at once. It didn't work. As soon as they were offered the golden calf, they took it. Therefore, the Hasidim nowadays, the main thing is leniency. Leniency. Let's love, God's love. Listen, leniency has to come because it's God's leniency. It can't be leniency because we're shirking our responsibility. We can't be lenient because of our own personal considerations, right? It's hard for me to keep Shabbat. It's hard. I have to drive to the synagogue on Shabbat. You have to use a microphone on Shabbat, right? Take the easy way out. That's not love of God. That's not love of God. The love of God is that God is showing you an easier way to serve him, right? A less severe way to serve. But the main thing is to serve God. That's the point. The point is serving God, not serving yourself. Look, and therefore the Hasidim, this love that God showed, that's the main thing nowadays. And the severities, even holy severities, they have to be secondary to God's love. Therefore, nowadays the law is like Beit Hillel. Why? Because even though that the argument of Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, it was for the sake of heaven. But nevertheless, nowadays the law of Beit Shammai, that he's very strict when it's confronted with the opinion of Beit Hillel, it's not a law, not a law. Beit Hillel is almost always right. Like the rabbis say in first chapter, that's what the rabbi said in the first chapter of Shabbat, in Yerushalmi, Law 17, that day that Hillel was secondary to, it says that they all met together in the attic of what it was of Gurion, and they made laws. It's right in the beginning of the Shabbat, of the laws of Shabbat, the Mishnah. And so it says over there that there were, 18 laws that were decided in favor of Beit Shammai. Beit Shammai, the pupils of Beit Shammai, they were the majority. It says that day that the laws were decided according to the opinion of Shammai was bad for the Jewish people, like the day that they made the golden calf. That's what it says. It says, how can you compare it to the day Beit Shammai was a holy person just because the law was like him? It was like making the golden calf. It says no, but it's because of the reason we said before. What does it mean? We said before that not in the future there won't be any bad. Therefore, you can be very strict. But nowadays, when there is bad, if you're too strict, things don't work. That's what happened with the golden calf. God tried to give the Jewish people a big blast of his power. And right at Mount Sinai, that's like Beit Shammai. That's like what Korach wanted, a big blast of his power in the world to show what is right and what is wrong. And as soon as they had the chance to be a little bit of freedom, a little bit of a sort of a escape hatch, they worship the golden calf. This is nowadays, if the law is like Beit Shammai, it's too strict, then it just causes people to leave Judaism. It's like the day that the golden calf was worshipped. Only in the future, that's when all of the severity, the egotism will be elevated to godliness. People on their own will say, I want to do what God wants. What does God want? Right? Let me look in the Shulchan Aruch. Let me ask a rabbi. What does God want? Only then will be davka shenichnu lechasidim. Then only then will the severities be secondary to the kindness. No, I'm sorry. I skipped. Only after that. Nowadays, the dominant thing has to be kindness, love. By means of that, we can refine the world, and then after the severity were secondary to kindness, after that, and then the world is refined, then there can be the law like Beit Hillel, Beit Shammai, like Korach. That's the thing of Beit Shammai. Only then we can be strict. But Korach, he wanted to jump the gun. Korach that did not want to be secondary to God's love in the world. Therefore, he had a big fall. Okay, and that's what Moses replied to him. That a talit that's all blue, nevertheless, you have to have strings to it. Because the main essence of Torah and commandments is to draw down godliness below into human personality, that people on their own should come to love and appreciate God. Love and appreciate God. Listen, you can't force a person to love something. You can't force a person to love something, right? In North Korea, at least that's what they tell us. In North Korea, everybody says, oh, we love Kim Jong-un, whatever his name is. We love him, yes, and everybody's clapping, and the girls are all crying, and here he is coming. And so, but if he would die, and there was nothing after him, they probably would knock down all the statues of him, and open up the borders, and at least that's what telling us. So let's say that that's true. Let's say that it's true, that the people don't care anything, but they're just afraid, and they think he's the grand man. They think there's nothing except for the whole world is just, South, is just North Korea. You ever see they used to have maps? They used to sell them in stores in New York, maps of the world. You ever see a map of the world? So they had the map was like this, map of the world from New York, right? Made in New York. And like 99% of the map was New York. And then over here was like, over here was like a little bit of California or something like that. Over here was Europe, and a little spot over there was Russia. The whole thing was, that's what they think is North Korea. That's what it is, right? So, but if they would, so everybody's forced. Yes, we love you, Kim Jong-un. Yes, we do, and we will salute you, and we will do everything you want to. Right? But they're being forced. As soon as the force goes away, they don't love anymore. So how can you force people to love God? It's a commandment to love God. How can you force people to love God? So the answer is that Kim Jong-un, whatever his name, Kim Jong-un, he's a person, and these people are also people. And he has his agenda, and they have their agenda. It just happens to be that the army is in his agenda, and the people that they're forced, right? They're forced, but it's not something internal inside of them that they feel that Kim Jong-un is enlivening us, and he is creating us, and he is benefiting us, and he was this. He tries to convince everybody that he is, but he's not. But God is. In fact, God is, yes, creating us. And God, yes, and God is not our adversary. He's not something separate from us. But God is creating us, and God loves us, and God is enlivening us, and He's Zonam Farnes Lakal. God provides for everybody. He's a Melech Ozer Moshiach again. He's a king that He helps and He protects. So when people feel this inside of them, right? That's why there's some people that say, Judaism is not a religion. It's not a religion. Okay, that's the point. Because religion is that God is outside of me, and that I'm over here and God is over there, right? And I'm investing in God. That's religion. I'm going to get the best, how do you say, the return from my investment. Invest in God. And the best investment is invest in the God of the Jews. That's the best investment. That's not love and fear. That's not genuine. Genuine is that God is doing everything for me, so much for me. How can I expect any more? I owe God everything, right? And what does God want from me? To be pleasant, to love others, to help others, to improve the world, to make the world a good place. But people will be internally motivated. Internally motivated. The world itself will shine godliness. How is that done? That's like the Lubavitcher Rebbe works now with non-religious, anti-religious Jews. It's inside of you already. You just have to warm it up. You just have to warm it up a little bit, and it'll come out on its own. People on their own will realize that, hey, Judaism is a wonderful thing. It's a good thing. What happens if I don't do it? If I don't do Torah mitzvahs? You're just missing out on the truth. That's all. Am I going to go to heaven or hell? Maybe you go to heaven. I don't know. Maybe there's some one good deed in your life, and you'll go to heaven. Could be. Maybe I did one bad deed in my life, and I'm going to go to hell. That's not the point. The point is that who are you right now? You feel your responsibility. Responsibility makes a person happy. And then but that can only be done by love now. That's Aaron's thing. And Korach's thing was, you have to do what's right, and that's it. Right? You don't want to do what's right? Okay. You die in the flood. What do I care? And that's not the way things are done now, as we'll talk about later. I just want to say one small thing. Once I met somebody, and he told me that he was not always religious. He was not always religious. He became religious. How did he become religious? He said that he was with a group of Israelis. They went to Amsterdam. Amsterdam is a terrible city, terrible, terrible city. I mean, in some ways, it makes, anyway, forget it. It's a terrible place. Definitely not conducive to Torah mitzvah. So we went with his friends there to do all sorts of who knows what. And he was walking down the street, and he noticed this old Jewish man standing like at the side of the street. And the Jewish man with a beard, and he caught his attention. And the Jewish man looked at him and he said, "Young man, you are going to burn in hell." You are going to burn in hell. He said he heard that. He told his friends, I'm going back to Israel. Went back to his hotel room, took out all the earrings and stuff that he had, went down to the airport, took a return ticket, and that's how he began to. Okay, so sometimes that works. Sometimes it works. It's definitely not, the method of Chabad, but sometimes it works. That's Korach's way. That's Korach's way. Everybody, you want to be part of it, be part of it. You're not, how you say, my way or the highway, the low way. So Korach's way does not work. It works in a way, and that's the whole argument we have over here, right? Is Judaism pure truth, and you have to give it in its pure form, or is Judaism pure truth, and you have to give it little by little? You have to give it like a little baby. You have to give them baby food. You can't give them a steak. You can't give them let's pour the whole thing down the throat. Little by little. So you give the person the truth a little. The goal is, of course, that person should mature, but you can't do it all at one time. That's Korach and Moses. Let's go. Now we have the Dvar Malchut.